February 8th, 2020, Dominick Reyes gave the consensus greatest mixed martial artist of all time, Jon Jones, the toughest fight of his entire life. In fact, this fight has gone down as the highest profile robbery in UFC history. Fans, fighters, even UFC President Dana White were convinced that Reyes had been robbed. You would think that Reyes was the future of mixed martial arts and that he was destined for greatness. But since then, Reyes has not only failed to win a fight, but he's gotten knocked out in every single one of his following bouts. Tragic downfalls are no rarity in MMA. Fighters like Tony Ferguson and BJ Penn are classic examples of two men that reached the pinnacle of the sport only to stick around too long to face the consequences. But for Reyes, it wasn't Father Time that plagued his career. He was young and healthy. It wasn't money that corrupted his ambition, for he hadn't made much. So why did a man who hit such a high peak fall off? To understand this, and to get a grasp of just how unfortunate Reyes' career has been, we need to start from the beginning. Reyes was born in California and grew up in a pretty rough area, and his parents, in an attempt to keep him away from trouble, put him into sports, where Reyes eventually found his first love, football. From the moment he started playing, he wanted to go to the NFL, and he was pretty damn good, and even went on to play in college, where he became a team captain for Stony Brook University. Reyes even broke school records for the most amount of sacks in that school's history. But despite receiving some attention from NFL recruits, his speed was deemed mediocre, and he failed to get drafted. For a while, this broke him, and after he graduated college, Reyes went back to California and got a job in construction. And although he was depressed, watching his NFL dreams die out, he never lost hope. Dominick felt like he was destined for more than the typical mundane 9-to-5. So to take out his frustration, he joined his brother's MMA gym. The rest was history. Reyes had his first amateur fight in 2013, and within a year, he turned pro. After dominating the amateur ranks, Reyes racked up 6 quick pro wins, which earned him his UFC contract. And in his UFC debut, Reyes came out with a bang, knocking out Joaquin Christensen in the first couple of minutes, which put every light heavyweight in the division on notice. He then racked up first-round finishes over Jeremy Kimball and Jared Cannonier before going on to beat Ovince St. Prude and Volkan Ozdemir. And after racking up 5 wins, Reyes had set himself up for a number 1 contenders fight against former UFC middleweight champion Chris Weidman that decided to move up a weight class to try his luck at becoming a double champ. Now, keep in mind, the light heavyweight division at this time wasn't so stacked. There wasn't a long line of contenders for the champion Jon Jones, who had been incredibly active. I mean, he beat Alexander Gustafsson, he beat Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos all in the span of like 8 months. Because remember, Jones had just returned off of a long hiatus because he failed a drug test and had to serve a 2-year suspension. And essentially, if Reyes were to get past Weidman, he was clearly the next guy in line. And the fans liked the idea of Jones versus Reyes as a title fight because, unlike a lot of the contenders that Jones was fighting, Dominick Reyes was one of the few guys that was actually the same height and stature of him. And he had a serious athletic advantage over most of his opponents because of that 20-year background in football. And the world knew that Jones had struggled with guys that were similar stature to him. And so he then goes out there, he fights Chris Weidman, and he knocks him out in the first round. Dominates Chris Weidman and shuts down his dreams of becoming a light heavyweight champion. He gets on the mic, and you guys all know about Jon Jones's checkered past. Well, Reyes poked fun at it and said, listen, I'm not here for party favors. I'm here for the belt. And seeing this go viral, the UFC quickly hopped on the opportunity and booked the fight. And even though fans were excited for the matchup, they really only gave Reyes the classic puncher's knockout chance to land a big gnarly left hand down the pipe. He didn't finish Anthony Smith, even though he did beat the fuck out of Anthony Smith. I mean, he whooped his ass. He had him in the fetal position. Anthony Smith will tell you that he's better than Jon, and he could beat him on paper, but that wasn't a night on paper.
He's not that good.
That's an interesting quote. Yeah,
he's pretty fucking good. Not
he might be the
not individually. Like if you take his individual skill sets and you take them away, each one of those things are not a problem.
Back to my point, though, Reyes was kind of the lamb being led to a slaughter, another pawn in the piece of Jon Jones's career, and Jones made a point to hammer this home at their press conference.
No, it's not difficult to get excited. Dominick starting off this whole thing with talking about party favorites and bringing up my past and stuff like that. It was exactly what I wanted and what I needed. Somebody who's tall. People think I do bad against tall people, so I'm excited for this challenge. He's undefeated. So yeah, this guy tickles my pickle, and I cannot wait.
Pause.
I'm taking you serious. But you're a pawn in this game, bro. I've been talking about it for a long time. Like DC, like all of them, bro. You're a pawn in this game.
Say I'm a pawn?
You're a pawn in this game, bro.
How so?
You're just a piece in the puzzle, bro.
Piece in the puzzle?
I'm trying to be great, bro, and you're just a part of it. You're a small part of it.
As am I. And you're just another pawn in my puzzle.
That's fine. Everyone's undefeated before they fight me, bro.
No, they're not. They're not, though. They're really not, though.
You knocked out Chris Weidman. He's been knocked out so many times. Good job.
When was the last time you knocked anyone out, ever?
I don't have to knock out people. I have a gigantic skill set.
So you say I don't have to knock out people, but then
listen,
you try to knock me knocking out people?
The only way, we all know
Jon.
The only way you can possibly win this fight is to catch me with the left. We all know that. I could submit you. I could out-wrestle you. I can kickbox you to death. Bro, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you, Dominick.
All right. We'll see.
You know it.
You're
a one-trick pony.
I don't know it, actually.
You're a one-trick pony.
You think you know it.
Bro, we saw your highlight reel. It was straight left. Straight left. Straight left.
Jones seemed like he had a chip on his shoulder. He had taken a lot of criticism after having a close fight with Thiago Santos, and it seemed like he was now coming back and he was going to show the real Jon Jones. So he was calling out Reyes for just being another pawn in his game. All you have is a left hand. I've fought athletic dudes before, and Reyes kind of had this ignorant bliss about him where he was saying, listen, Jon, you struggled against guys that are big. I've been playing football. I'm an athlete. I mean, Reyes mentioned that he was an athlete probably like 500,000 times in the build-up to this fight. It even became a bit of a meme.
Athlete. I'm a different kind of athlete. I'm a traditional American athlete.
Yes.
Where I have baseball in my blood. I got football, wrestling.
But Reyes didn't seem to be psychologically affected like some other opponents that we saw get broken by Jon Jones in the build-up to their fights, like Anthony Smith, for example.
Thank you.
Hey, Anthony.
A lot of guys would fight Jon, and not only was the media a big step up because all of a sudden they had cameras in their face everywhere they go during fight week, but every room they walk into, it's like people are getting ready for a funeral, right? People say good luck for the fight, but no one thinks they're actually going to win. But Reyes seemed pretty confident. He didn't seem so shaken up by Jon Jones, but Jones really had a chip on his shoulder, and Reyes just seemed a little bit too simple for him. The tools that he had in his tool bag just wouldn't be enough to stack up to Jon. But then the fight happened. Let's just say Reyes wasn't so intimidated by Jones's GOAT status, because from the moment the bell rung, he got right in Jon's face and gave him no respect whatsoever. Not fearing the power coming back in his direction, he let go the kitchen sink, landing big body kicks, flush left hands, and even at the end of the first round, he landed a strong body shot, dropping Jon Jones to the ground. And although this wasn't a very damaging strike, given that it caught Jon off balance more than anything else, seeing Jon fall and get embarrassed in the first round really set the tone for the rest of the fight, and just clearly won him the first round. In the second round, Reyes picked up right where he left off, outstriking Jon 33-22 on significant strikes and exposing the boxing game of Jon Jones. Again, keep in mind, Jones has like one of the longest reaches in UFC history. People are afraid to get near him because of his elbows and his wrestling threat as well. But Reyes was stuffing the takedowns effortlessly, and unlike other opponents, he just said, fuck it, this is my one opportunity, and this is probably the best way to approach a Jon Jones fight. Actually just taking the fight to him, not being skittish, not trying to play this little tit-for-tat game, just saying, fuck it, let me go out there and bulldoze this guy. And that's exactly what he did. Outstriking Jon in the second round, going out there in the third, outstriking him again 26-19 on significant strikes, most of Reyes' strikes being hard body shots and flush punches to the head, while Jones was landing the leg kicks. So Reyes edged out the first 3 rounds, but he's starting to look tired, and he gets his ass kicked in the 4th and the 5th. Jon starts to come on strong. He starts marching down Reyes, and that's the last thing that the judges see, is Reyes struggling to keep it up, being on the back foot, being exhausted. Jon showcasing his championship medal and all of that 5-round experience. But hey, none of those rounds were 10-8s. Every single one was a 10-9, and Reyes clearly won the first 3. I mean, surely, didn't he? Well, as Bruce Buffer gets in the cage and starts reading out the scorecards, 48-47, 48-47, 49-46, Dominick thinks to himself, oh, someone gave one of us 4 rounds. It has to be me. I've won. And they fuck him over, raising Jones's hand, giving him the fight. Despite every single fan, every fighter, everyone watching him get his ass kicked for 3 rounds. Now, there were some fans that were saying things like, you got to take it from the champ to beat the champ. You really got to knock the king out to be the king. Bullshit. All you have to do is win the majority of the rounds. That's how it works. There's not some rule where you have to finish the champ. That's fucking horseshit. Okay? Dana White, UFC CEO, went to the post-fight press conference and said he thought that Jon lost.
My kids are terrorizing me that the fix is in and how can this happen, Dad? Reyes won that fight. Going into the last round, I had Dominick Reyes 3-1 going into the last round.
Jon Jones at the post-fight press conference said that he wasn't confident that he was winning the fight, and even posted on his Instagram a picture of him in the belt saying, I'm sorry I scared you, acknowledging that the fight was pretty goddamn difficult.
I wasn't always confident that I was winning the fight. I was confident that I wasn't going to be giving up or slowing down.
And Reyes, well, just wasn't rewarded for actually going out there and taking 3 rounds off of the hardest fighter to beat in MMA history.
Yeah, I definitely would like a rematch. I mean, I won. But, and it was very controversial. It wasn't like he blew me out of the water and I was like cowering in the corner and, you know, sitting on my butt like, don't hurt me. Like, no, I was bringing it to him.
Which, if you think about it, is just so fucked up. Like, you work your whole life to be a champion. You're going up against the toughest test imaginable. The guy that has a better resume than anyone else. You take 3 rounds off of him and you don't even get your hand raised? Are you kidding me? But no, he gets the shit under the stick. It's the highest profile robbery we've arguably ever seen. And Jon, after having such a tough fight, decides to leave the division. He vacates the belt. He says no to the rematch, talking about how he's losing motivation. Well, I just didn't have the motivation. I want to move up to heavyweight. I got to rejuvenate myself. And Dominick, just nothing to show for it. But the UFC now has a vacant belt, and they make a fight between Dominick Reyes and the surging contender Jan Blachowicz, who's coming off of a 3-fight win streak with a couple of knockouts over notable guys like Luke Rockhold and Corey Anderson. And although this was a guy that has serious knockout power, I mean, how the hell could you think that Reyes is going to lose? He just beat Jon Jones. There's no way he's going to lose. And so they're booked to fight on UFC 253. And contrary to popular belief, we actually see Dominick Reyes saying, I'm not caught up in the fact that I think that I beat Jon Jones. It's a new day. It's a new fight. I don't care who's holding the belt. I don't care if I'll ever get the rematch again. I just want to be champion. You know, and the reason I say contrary to popular belief is a lot of people have this idea that Reyes just got caught up in his ego, thinking he was the man after beating Jon Jones. And although we never are really going to know what was going on in his head, everything that he said in interviews leading up to his fight with Jan Blachowicz suggested otherwise. It actually suggested that he was highly motivated and that he doesn't want to dwell on it.
When you walk in on the cage on Saturday night, Sunday morning, do you feel like you're walking in as the champion already, or do you have to prove something?
It's another fight, man. It's just, he's a completely different opponent. He brings different challenges to the table, and I got to address him.
Again, a lot of fans expecting him to go out there and beat Blachowicz, and he gets knocked out. Destroyed. He gets his ribs bruised up with these big body kicks from Jan. He gets his nose broken and loses badly. And so Reyes goes into a dark place. He has to deal with his first loss. And he comes back and says that, listen, it just wasn't my time. It was Jan Blachowicz's time to be a champ. I'm still young. I'll eventually get there. And then he fights Yuri. Yuri only has one win in the UFC. They have a tough scrap. They put on one of the best fights I've ever seen. But Yuri Prochazka knocks Dominick out cold via spinning elbow in the second round, flattening him out on the canvas. And now Reyes, since having that fight with Jon Jones, has lost twice in a row, both by brutal KO. In an attempt to save his career, Reyes took a year off to reinvent himself. He even moved to Connecticut and teamed up with Glover Teixeira and Alex Pereira to prepare for his next test. Reyes was booked to fight Ryan Spann at UFC 281, and given that him and Alex were both on the same card, they became close training partners. In interviews, Reyes seemed upbeat, often saying, "I'm 2 away," to remind himself that with a few wins, he could be back once again fighting for the belt.
It's the number 12th ranked guy, Ryan Spann. Where's your head at these days, Dominick Reyes?
Oh, I'm golden, baby. I'm back, man. Everything that's happened in the past is the past, and I'm ready to move forward, ready to take out Spann, and ready to keep going forward, man.
But the layoff, the change of scenery, the new training partners, it didn't help. Once again, Reyes got knocked out, this time in the first round. I remember watching this and getting this overwhelming feeling of sorrow. I saw this guy do the impossible. I saw him defeat Jon Jones. Yet here he was, laid out on the canvas, getting knocked out for the 3rd time in a row. Dedicating his life to this sport to become a champion, only to be left with brain damage and crumbs. MMA has to be one of the most unforgiving sports that there is. And most guys don't even make it to the Dominick Reyes status. The average fighter doesn't even make it to having a UFC main event, let alone a title fight. The average fighter, they'll make it to Bellator, the PFL, they'll win one, they'll lose one, they'll win one again, and then they'll get knocked out a few times, and they'll call it quits. But the point is, most people don't have anything to show for their MMA careers. And the sickest and cruelest part about Reyes' career was seeing him reach the highest peak and still having him fall off the face of the earth within a few years. All while being young and being looked at as a guy that was the future of the sport. This isn't a man like Conor that was corrupted by money and fame. This isn't a guy like Tony Ferguson, who, although failed to become an undisputed champ, broke records, won an interim belt, will go down as one of the best lightweights ever, and also will remain a fan favorite forever. Tony made a lot of money, and he's gained a fan base that'll support him for the rest of his life, no matter what he decides to do. Not Reyes, though. And even though he's still in the UFC, his chances of winning aren't looking so good. And if he loses again, he'll probably get cut from the roster. So why did his career fall off? Did his ego get to him? I don't think so. Was it the skill? Maybe. Maybe he was just the perfect storm to beat Jon Jones at the right time in the right place. His mentality on the night of his fight with Jon was perfect, but gritting down on the mouthpiece wasn't enough for him to get past the others. I guess he never showed the ability to make adjustments. his style was just somewhat limited. But it's so ironic how he was able to outstrike the best fighter ever, stuff his takedowns, and still not be enough to beat the other guys. Ultimately, I think it's a little bit of his style being simple, but it's mostly the fact that a few KOs can put you over the line to where you're never going to be the same. You're never going to be able to take a shot again. And Reyes is just one of those guys that's unfortunate to have those knockouts affect him to the point to where he just can't hang at the top anymore. But either way, even though his career is falling off, I wanted to make this documentary to remember this guy. I wanted to give him credit for what he was able to accomplish on that night in February of 2020. A win could have given this guy a brand to leverage for the rest of his life. He could have been looked at as the first man to beat Jon Jones. And even if he wouldn't have won the rematch, at least he would have got it. And maybe his career would be different. Anyway, I wish Dominick the best of luck, and I'll be rooting for him in his next fight.